Hello and welcome to the Collective Arcana. We're a channel all about tabletop gaming, and today we're going to sort of do an intro to DMing, just sort of help people get started, get an idea of what they're signing up for when they do it. We know that there's a lot of, I saw there's 40 million people playing D&D by Wizards of the Coast estimates, which is a lot. And
I bet it's more. That's just people they recorded. I didn't tell anybody I was playing.
But that means there's going to be a lot more players out there, and that means that eventually a lot of them are probably going to want to be DMs. And there's just not a lot of great resources for beginner DMs. There's a lot of great resources for people that want to become better DMs. Matt Colville, there's a lot of just fantastic resources for that. But a lot of people have trouble even getting there, and that's sort of what we're going to do in this little, it's going to be a series.
I've noticed in the groups there are a lot of people who want to play, and they're DMing before they play because they can't find anyone, and I think that's a situation a lot of people are in because it's becoming popular with all the Critical Role and stuff, and so people are saying, well, there's no DM, so I'm going to step up and I'll do it, and I don't know how though. So so I've decided that I want to learn how, mostly because if I'm going to run a channel about D&D, I should probably at least run a single one shot.
Or something, yeah.
I also have nephews who I plan on brainwashing into being D&D nerds. I've got friends who are curious about it, and they have little ones too, and there are just so many people that, if I'm, visiting or something, I want to be able to run a game without having to, not just be completely lost. So what we're going to do is I'm going to learn with you. I've only been playing for a year, so I'm not even that good at playing yet.
I'm very good at playing.
But I'm going to learn with you, and I'm going to ask the questions that I have as I'm trying to figure this out. And we're just going to kind of vlog the whole journey. And it would help so much if you would put your questions in the comments too. We'll respond to them. I'm sure, the community will too, but we want to make sure we get all the one-on-one questions covered. So, and
bear with us. Sarah's losing her voice a little bit.
Yeah, don't sound great right now.
So just bear with us, and hopefully everything comes through.
All right, so I've decided to start my first game. Where do I start? What's the very first thing I do?
Well, step one is going to be, we actually did a video about it. It's going to be choosing the game you want to run. 5th edition right now is huge. It's the reason that there's so many people flooding into the hobby. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. And it's much quicker to learn, much easier to run a game than in some of your other options.
And that's what they play on Critical Role.
That's what they play on Critical Role and Force Grey and High Rollers, and most of the biggest streaming shows are going to be 5e. The game that we run is Pathfinder. It's based on 3rd edition, 3rd E of D&D, and it's just a sort of a souped up, a little bit higher crunch than 5th edition.
Into deep detail with this, so if you want to look at our video, I'll put a little card up here so you can click it, but kind of weighing the pros and cons of each system and seeing which one is the best fit for you, not which is better.
Yes, and in this case, for a new DM, my recommendation would be 5th edition, both because it's more popular, it's going to be easier for you to find players, and because it's going to be easier for you to find help right now. It's huge. There's a lot of people, a lot of big community that's helping people play that and learn about that. And then the other reason is just as a DM, so much of it's easier on you in 5th edition just because the numbers don't vary as much. You don't have to worry about, is this monster way too powerful? Generally speaking, it's a pretty good system for making sure that that you don't break anything, either as a player getting too strong or too weak. Most of the options are very balanced, or as a DM, goblins are still a viable encounter at low level. Even some stronger monsters with the right setup can be fine for lower level parties.
They can watch our video on that because we did go into it quite a bit. So that'll be the first step. It's going to be challenging for me because I've only played Pathfinder. But so let's say I picked 5e. So now what?
Well, so now you want to kind of figure out the type of game that you're going to run. There's 3 big options that you have. Option A is, and it's probably going to be the one that I would recommend for a newbie, is going to be running an adventure path or an adventure module. What that is that's a pre-made adventure. Some of them might be made for low-level parties, like level 1 through 3. Some of them are, designed to just take you through one adventure, maybe get 1 level out of it. Other paths will take a character completely from 1st level all the way to 20th level on just like the same, like it's a full campaign just plotted out for you. The only real downsides to those are, 1, you've got to buy them. They're not free, although there are a lot of free options online, free resources. Even a lot of creator, community created stuff.
If you've got one, drop a link.
Yes, please do, because we're gonna go through her whole journey, and we'd really prefer to use some community created adventure path, with your permission, of course. If you want to give us permission to I don't know if we're going to actually stream it or what we'll do.
I don't know if I'm that brave. I want to, though. I'm going to try. We'll see how brave I am.
But we want to completely document her journey on her running her first game. So if you've got a great adventure path for newbies, drop a link down there. Even if you didn't make one, if you just have some recommendations, drop that down there too. Let us know. Let us know some good adventures for newbies. I haven't played much from adventure paths.
Yeah, you homebrew a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I pretty much out of the gate from the start of my career, I was doing my own adventures, which by all means, if you think you can do it.
I don't.
Very, I think you could.
I think I'm ready. I don't want to jump in.
It's very rewarding, and we'll talk a little bit about if you were doing that.
We're gonna do a whole series on homebrewing as well. Yeah. But this is more for, I think structure is good for new people.
Yes. So when you get an adventure path, like I said, it's going to be a little more rigid than if you've, run a game before, but for newbies, I think it's a great way.
You said there were 3 options, so there are the modules.
Yes. So the modules is option A, and it's the one that I'd most recommend if you're a newbie, especially if you're just really not sure you have what it takes. A module is going to do a good job, or an adventure path, depending on what you get. It's going to do a really good job of holding your hand, and I don't mean that
I want my hands, both hands.
But it's going to have, all the information that you need. Your other 2 options, and these get more complicated as they go. Option 2 is an on-rails campaign, where it's very much like an adventure path, but you're creating it yourself. So, you know that the party is going to go to this place, they're going to talk to this character is going to give them this quest might end one of 2 ways, and then what could happen those 2 ways. That's not going to work with every group, and we'll talk a little bit about session 0 and what you and your players should expect from the game. But if you've got a group that's on board with something like that just wants you to take them on a story ride, just show them some stuff and just let them interact with the world without trying to break it.
It sounds like Skyrim.
Yeah, it's very much like what you'd get in most video games, where you have some choices, but at the end of the day, we're all going to go fight Alduin at the end of the game. And that's where a lot of DMs.
Spoiler.
Yeah, if you haven't played Skyrim. But you've got. But then the third option is a sandbox game. Sandbox games are really good for certain types of groups, even of newbies, people that just that are just there to see what they can do, what they can and can't do. As a DM, they tend to be the most challenging to run because you have to have a well plotted out world. You have to be able to answer questions that you didn't expect to be asked at any given moment. So it really takes a lot of prep work, and of course there's another way you can run that. You can run a procedurally generated one, which can be a lot of fun, where the player says, okay, what's east of here? And you might say to the player, I don't know, what's east of here? And then you let the player describe the country over to the east. It can be really fun, great collaborative thing.
Stressful.
It's for advanced groups.
Yes, this is for 101.
Yeah, it's for advanced groups, but that is that's the extreme end of that sandbox. But the more toned down version sandbox is where you as the DM, you already have everything planned out. You already know where everything is. You know how this country interacts with this country. You know how these creatures, sustain themselves in this remote area, even if the party's not going to go there for 10 levels, you've already thought about it and have it planned. That's definitely advanced, whereas the module is going to give you a lot of that information.
Yeah, so I think as a first time, a one-shot is smart because you don't want to commit to a full campaign and then after the first one be like, I hate this. I don't want to do this.
Right.
So I think a one-shot, especially, that's what I'm going to do.
And one thing to clarify, you'll see that term a lot if you're new in the scene. You'll see that term one-shot a lot. And while generally speaking, that's referring to one night, a few hours, everybody gets together and does one thing. A one-shot might actually be a 2 or 3 night type of a thing. It just means that there's one little story with these characters, and we're not committing to anything beyond that.
A little arc or something.
Yeah, if it takes us 2 days to get through this dungeon or 3 nights to get through this dungeon, we're still just doing this dungeon.
Pressure off.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you again talk to your party and let them know, like, is it okay if this isn't a one adventure thing? If we might have to meet back up again if we run short on time. It's definitely something to keep in mind. You don't have to have it perfectly plotted down for 2, 3, 5 hours, whatever you're agreed on going in.
So let's say I pick one of these adventure paths or whatever. What do I expect? I do not have any clue what goes on over here, at all. So what are they going to tell me? What is this document going to give me, and what do I need to provide?
So it's they typically come in the small magazine size type of things, and you can get full campaign settings, which is sort of an intermediary thing where you're using a pre-made campaign, but playing your own adventures out of it.
Like the Tal'Dorei?
Matt Mercer's Tal'Dorei campaign setting. One that I love is the Eberron campaign setting. It's just fantastic. You can just get one little book that's that campaign setting, or you can just get an adventure module.
We're gonna focus on that.
For the most part, an adventure module is going to have everything you should conceivably need for what's in the module. So when I say that, I mean if this module is all about demons plaguing a small town in the mountains, and you're trying to find out the source of it, liberate the city from the demonic influence, and get everybody happy endings, it's probably not going to tell you much about the Feywild or the plane of air. It's going to function on the town, maybe the country that the town is set in. If there's any sort of influence from outside the town, they'll talk about that, and then they'll probably talk an awful lot about demons. But it's not going to cover much else. So if your players are prone to asking questions outside of that, you can either let them know that it's not going to be an issue, or you can just sort of make it up on the fly.
It'd be good to talk beforehand. Be like, listen, this is my first game. Don't try to break me because you'll succeed.
Yes.
If I'm doing a demon game, maybe don't be like, what do you think about fairies? I want to go find fairies.
Yeah,
I go to the library to find information about fairies. Don't do that.
Right. I mean, D&D is a social construct. Everybody at the table, that's why the session 0 is so important. You can lay down the foundation of this is what I expect from you, this is what you expect from me, and let's make this work. Some people, I said it in the other video, the hobby is for everyone, but not every table is for everyone. There will be times when you just do not click with a group, and whether that's the group itself, whether that's their style of play, whether that's house rules, any number of things.
It's like dating.
Yeah, you don't have to stay with a table that you don't like. I always recommend. I mean, you had a bad experience your first time,
and I didn't play for a year.
Yeah, but try it again.
Because of that one.
A lot of times, a table is just, we were a bunch of 20-something-year-old dudes. We're not the most. Not that they were cruel or rude or anything, but they just.
They didn't like the DM's wife at the table.
I don't even.
But now I have two groups, and it's great. Both of them, very different groups, but it's so fun. Anyway, we're getting off the rails here, but so this actually leads to the next question. What if my player does throw me for a loop and they ask me something I did not expect, maybe not even on purpose? They thought they were doing the right thing, but I'm I don't know. What do I say? What do I do? How do you
Well, the adventure path is going to do a pretty good job of leading the characters in the right direction. One thing I would recommend if you're going to do an adventure path, even if you only expect to make it to so far on a given game night, I recommend before you start the game, read that adventure path front to back at least once or twice. You don't need to have it completely memorized, but that way, if at some point your character or your player says, hey, I noticed that, you said this guardhouse burned down. What's up with that? And then you happen to know that a few levels, there's something that's sort of related there. You might be able to flip to that page, find the information about that burned guardhouse. Usually, your players aren't going to ask for anything that isn't introduced to them in the game, and most adventure paths aren't going to introduce anything that they don't at least have some sort of plan for. It's like a very Chekhov's gun, Chekhov's gun situation.
That's my biggest fear is improv. Not my strong point yet.
It'll come.
So do you have like a fail-safe? If you just are absolutely in a corner and you're just like, I really don't, you freeze and you just don't know.
Well, I mean, the easiest one is, and be honest with your players, don't ever just try to hide. You don't have, just because you're behind that DM screen doesn't mean you have to be cool. Theoretically, these are still your friends you're sitting around the table with, and say, hey, Sarah, that's a great question. I think that's a really interesting train of thought. I'm not sure. So give me just a few minutes, go get some drinks, go to the bathroom, whatever. Just give me a few minutes to look over my notes, see what I have. Just communicate with your players.
Yeah.
If you're not comfortable, you don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with, bottom line. And if you don't think you can immediately figure something out,
ask for a break or something.
Yeah, let your players know that just give me a minute, I got to reorient,
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. What happens if somebody dies in a one shot?
Okay, so, it really depends. When you set up your session 0, when you talk about, we're going to play a game, I mean, by all means, you might just be able to say, hey guys, let's try out D&D, and Friday everybody shows up and play D&D. Great. But when you set up a session 0, which is always recommended even for a short-term game.
We can do a whole video on that. That'll probably be the next in this series.
Yes, I think so, yeah. We might do a little bit. We might do like a world building or something like that.
It will be in the series, just
it'll be in the series. One of the next couple, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Should
probably look at the, budget.
Yeah. So what we'll do, what I would recommend you do is find out how comfortable your players are going to be with death in the game. Some players do not want it at all. Some players hate the idea of their character dying, and if the whole table agrees, then that's what you should do. If the table doesn't agree, then you got to work out some sort of compromise there. Let them know, okay, we'll try not to let it happen. I'll try to come up with
More than anything,
options.
it seems like a death in a one shot that would be sort of time consuming, because then that person maybe won't get to play for the rest of that game, and then they have to go through introducing their other character.
Well, and that's sort of why you have that session 0 talk. If you know that it's your adventure is going to have a high chance of player death,
maybe not the best idea for your first.
Well, maybe not, but I mean, it could be what your players are into. What you and your players want to do is run a real meat grinder type of situation. Can be very fun if everybody's on board. If your friend Joe sits down and Joe says, I've got this character that I've really been wanting to play for a long time, or maybe just sitting around in my head that I've been thinking about since I was a little kid playing make-believe, and I really can't wait to have this character go on an adventure, and Joe's really invested in this character, and then 2 rooms in, a kobold crits and tears Joe's heart out, and now Joe's upset. So
not having fun for the rest of the...
Exactly, not having fun. Whereas if everybody knows it going in that it's going to be a chance of character death, you can say, hey, bring in these characters. Don't worry about a backstory. Worry about just 1 or 2 sentences to hook them in. How do they fit into the story? Oh, I'm Fred. I'm a retired guard. I heard there's some trouble. Or hi, I'm Osirana. I'm an elven druid. I live nearby, and I've been feeling some weird vibes in the forest. Thought I'd come check it out. And right there, that character can come in, be introduced.
Without spending too much time.
Without spending too much time. Just keep them pretty broad, archetypical, and if it's a one-shot, there probably won't be a whole lot of need for intense backstories or interactions or intrigue or anything like that. It's probably going to go right with the flow of the game. So
let's say Joe gets his heart ripped out. Do you fudge dice at this point? When do you fudge dice? Should you fudge dice?
So it's a great question, and it's a question you'll see a lot, and there's a million different theories on fudging dice. I would say that for my part, there's only a couple of ways I'll fudge dice. One is if I know that my party just does not want character death, if they're just really not into it at all. I mean, if they make even if my party's not into character death and they make dumb enough decisions, I'm sorry, but my friend who once jumped down a crevasse to chase his sword, his goblin died. There's not a lot. You didn't have a fly of anything
Not
or a
me.
slow fall. No, not you.
I wouldn't do such a thing.
So I mean, there's only so much you can do. At the end of the day, you don't want to take agency from people if they're doing crazy stuff. Crazy things should happen. But if your party really doesn't like the idea of character death, and it's looking like that may happen, you may fudge some rolls. It's not something that you should do often. It's a unique scenario if you're going to fudge rolls. The only time that I typically...
Like the red button, like don't hit it unless you...
Right, and the reason for that is even if people think that they don't want you, even if people think that they do want that, oh, I can't, we can't die kind of thing, for the most part, there's no drama, there's no teeth to the story if they can survive anything. With that said, the one big caveat that I have is if you as a DM are in a situation and you realize, okay, I didn't anticipate that last, you're in a dungeon crawl and you've got your big final fight all set up, and you realize that you didn't anticipate how much damage that crocodile in that sewer could do, and you've realized your party is hurt a lot worse than you expected them to be in this final fight.
You didn't balance it, maybe.
Yeah, or maybe you just, out of the gate, you just thought, oh, they can handle this, and then 2 rounds in, you realize they cannot handle this.
Or they just rolled ones the whole time. Or...
Right. So if you're at a risk of party wipe,
it might be on you.
and you think you think it's on you. For me, you've got to meet those 2 criteria. You have to realize that you messed up as the DM, and you have to realize that the party is overwhelmed and they never had a chance to succeed. Now, with that said, there's a lot of different ways to handle that without fudging dice. One thing is you got defeated, but you got captured. Another thing is, and this is a really great tool, is I didn't expect you to die, so you all wake up and it's that morning before you went into that dungeon and someone had a premonition. And maybe they'll be, in that situation, maybe they'll be more prepared for what's in the final thing. Yeah, it's something you don't want to use too often, but it is an option for you if it looks like you're going to get hit with a full party wipe. The reality is, if you're running a game and everybody knows going in that death is a possibility, and they die and they don't get through it, that's okay. That is totally okay. If nothing else, maybe it'll set them up for them to remember, oh, that time that Sarah ran us through that lich's lair and we didn't even make it an hour in,
That's what D&D is at the end of the day.
It's stories, yeah.
Memories and stories.
Yeah, fudging is something that can really feel like it removes agency and any sort of consequence from a game.
Yeah.
So I think
I would only do it if I felt like I didn't balance it right.
Yeah, that's the thing. Never punish the players because you messed up. You build fair, but if you know you built fair, you play to win. And you can certainly have those things in your back pocket, like, oh, maybe they want to capture the party for some experiment if it's a lich, or anything like that, or maybe just toss them down and they wake up in some pit to be fed to some whatever horrible creature. Have those fail safes set up. Have a punishment for failure. Have some lasting injuries. If one player dies, let that player be dead. Have them come back with another character, because you don't want to have a situation where they feel like nothing they do matters.
So, okay, this is probably a really dumb question. Do I still need the handbooks and stuff if I'm doing a adventure path?
Well, it really sort of depends. Some adventure paths will include most of the monsters that you're going to have, especially if it's a lot of unique monsters. Some adventure paths may only reference monsters. But a lot of creatures and magic items and equipment and things like that are even invented for modules and for adventure paths. So a lot of character options, a lot of monster options will appear there. So you could probably, if you have a fundamental idea, you could probably get by. I will definitely say if all you have is a player's handbook, you'll probably be okay.
Even if you're doing 5e and there's a DM's.
Yeah, even without the Dungeon Master's Guide. I mean, if it's a module where you expect people to be shopping a lot, but again, most shops are going to include what they have. Some of them will just reference a page in the Dungeon Master Guide or character guide, the player's handbook, but a lot of them will be pretty self-contained. I've seen it both ways. I'm not sure if maybe some of the stuff I was looking at was from a different generation or what, but on the one hand, Wizards of the Coast and whoever makes the module, Paizo or whatever, they're going to want you to have those books, so they will reference a lot of stuff that's in them, but you could get by just fine.
Also, I noticed like with our game shop, if you have a place where you can like rent a table, they'll let you use their books, which the books are pretty pricey. Libraries might have them. I never thought to check that.
Some libraries do.
I wouldn't go out and buy hundreds of dollars worth of books.
No.
Unless you I don't know. If you're going to be a player, you should maybe...
Player handbook.
Yeah, but if you're not sure if you want to DM or not, I would see if you can rent a table, do your game there. They can also probably, like the ones we went to, you could use their maps and their minis and stuff like that. And that way you're not out a bunch of money. And
right.
They could probably give you some advice too, I mean.
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely say that for the most part, while it's great to have a Dungeon Master's Guide and a bestiary, if you don't mind sitting down and doing some work, you can get by without either one of those things. Dungeon Master's Guides come in really handy when crafting or special rules for penalties and things like that. The player's handbook
is more important.
The player's handbook is the most important. Realistically, I mean, you can play with a player's handbook for a pretty long time.
You can look up anything online too.
Yeah, most things are going to have.
You don't be on your phone the whole time, but like if you needed to.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, build ahead of time. Build what you're going to build. But without a Dungeon Master's Guide and without a bestiary, if you have an idea of what they're going to be facing, like you've read through the adventure path or you've planned out your own adventure, you're going to be able to have that stuff ready. You're not going to need that monster manual. You're not going to need that Dungeon Master's Guide to figure out, the effects, because you're going to have done the research ahead of time and you're going to have it all ready. Players' handbooks are important, but the rest of it you can really just kind of roll with. It really comes down to the type of players that you have. How okay are they with sticking with your game plan? You might be able to go pretty far without having any books. I do always recommend the player's handbook as the bare minimum purchase, but if for DMing online, a great resource. You can be ready for a game with just that book.
So I've got my homework. I think this is a good place to cut this because I want to pick the module. I keep calling it a module because I keep seeing that online, but maybe I'll pick one and then I'll look at it for the first time with you guys. I don't know, again, if we'll kind of look at some of the communities, but I do want it to be 5e just for simplicity's sake. So I don't know. But even if we don't use yours, I still would love if you guys would share. But
yeah, just because we don't use it now, either we later or maybe some people in the comments might see it and really like it and want to use it. So.
I've seen some really cool ideas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll stop here and then I'll do a little research and find. Where can I find these? I'm not actually. What do I even?
So your local game stores will have them.
Like as the little individual books.
As little individual books, as little adventures. You can also get them online, of course. You can get them in PDF format directly from the publisher's website.
What should I search? What is it called?
If Pathfinder typically calls them Adventure Paths, and then Wizards of the Coast D&D 5e usually calls them Adventure Modules. Okay. But if you just pre-made adventures, type that in, that'll pull up. A lot of third parties will even make these sort of system agnostic ones that can kind of work either way. They either might include optional rules for each version, or they might just, you know, kind of give you a guideline on how to figure it out. So there's a lot of places to get them. I really like half-priced books. It's a great resource.
Do they have those there?
Yes, they'll have rule books and maps.
That's probably
and
what we'll do it if we don't hear back from any recommendations.
Yeah, I mean,
we're still a new channel, so we're not.
Yeah, well, and we have a lot of PDFs too, because that Humble bundle that Pathfinder did a few months ago, a friend got it for me. It's just tremendous. But yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised the resources you can find at bookstores. Half-price books, like I said, is great because a lot of it's heavily discounted. For example, we talked about in the other video, the Pathfinder Core Rule book. They have the little paperback version of that for $20 now. So yeah, that's just at our local ones. Your mileage will vary. So always check there if you're looking for resources on the cheap.
Sorry, we had a yelling cat. But for independent creators, look on Twitter. If you look through just that whole community, it's huge. There's so many independent creators on there. I'm going to kind of comb through those as well. But yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of options though. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, you can find free resources, you can find paid, professionally made resources. But again, a lot of that independently created stuff is going to be really great quality. I mean, it's a fantastic community with a lot of creative people in it. So.
All right. Well, I think that's all we have for this one. We'll continue this series. Give us a like, a subscribe. We'll make a playlist on how to DMing 101.
Yeah.
Follow my probably super embarrassing journey.
No, it really fun.
And hopefully you will also have a super embarrassing journey of your own that you can tell me about, make me feel better. Yeah, I think that's it.
I think that's it. Like I said, look out for more. We'll hopefully take you through the full journey and help you with yours. And thanks for joining the collective.
We'll see you next time.
Be sure to like and subscribe and ring the bell for the next video.